is John Clare, this is John's Dark Art, and as always, you are very welcome. Now, today's piece I want to talk about is a piece I call Celtic Tiger Maul. A bit of a mouthful, that I know. But this piece is basically my way of depicting how the Celtic tiger economy of Ireland ended up screwing over a lot of people. It's like me trying to tell a story within a single artwork. Whether I was successful or not, I will leave that up to you to judge. Do I think there's issues with the artwork? Well, of course I do, because I'm the artist. But what I'll do is I'll bring it up for you here now, so you can have a look at it. Had a good look? Awesome. So what we'll do now is we'll go into the breakdown where I will explain how I did the piece, my ideas and reasoning behind it, and we will do that now. Okay, so here we are, we're in Procreate, and now what I'm going to do, I'm going to go into the canvas information as I always do. And this piece was started on the 24th of March 2018, so it was done quite a while ago. And if we go into statistics, you can see that it took me 20 hours and 27 minutes to do, and it took me 21,163 strokes. I mean, I like this information because it gives me an idea of how much work that I put into it. And 20 hours, while not one of my longest drawings by any stretch of the imagination, it's still quite an involved piece. And I think that while there are issues with the work, and I think if I did it again, I'd probably revise some of the things that I did within the drawing, which I'll explain as we go on. For the time in which I completed it, I'm relatively happy with it, if that makes any sense. So what we'll do, we'll go into export. We'll go into the time-lapse replay. We're not going to export it. We're going to play it. There we are, and we're upside down. So obviously there was a bit of finagling going on, but here I am drawing out the tiger. Now the idea was, initially I selected a reference to draw, and then if we actually just stop the time lapse for a second so I can show you, that there is me, my good self, because I was the most convenient model mainly. And what I basically wanted to do, the idea was to show the tiger biting down on my neck, it's killing me. And the idea for the piece was to show that how the Celtic tiger economy of the 2000s in Ireland, when things were going great guns, and when the crash came in, that those same circumstances in which built up the economy, like the property sector, it ended up kind of making a lot of people very bankrupt. So that was my rationale behind the piece. Now, whether I was successful at delivering that idea or not, again, I always leave that down to you, the audience. But anyway, so let's get back into it now. And here I am drawing it. As you can tell, the tiger was very low to the ground. And I selected it for that reason. Now, one criticism I've heard from Roman, actually, and I think it's quite a just criticism, is that it's not very dynamic. And I actually take that on board. That does make a lot of sense. But because the reference I was taking it from was from a static image of a tiger just eating. So, what I did was I ended up trying to create the piece around the initial reference. I mean, I think in terms of drawing out the tiger, I think I did okay. I mean, obviously I'm dicking around with sizes here a little bit. And yeah, I mean, the head was way too small. Now that I look at it here, yeah, that makes a lot more sense. So basically what I've done there is, so anyway, I've shaded in the face, and I think the one thing with tigers, the one thing that probably takes up the most time is getting the stripes in and making sure they look good. You know, especially with the way I draw. If we punch in a little bit, now I know it's a little bit pixelated because it's 1080p, but you could tell that I kind of knew something was wrong straight away by altering the nose. So I increased the size of the nose to kind of enlarging the face, but then later on I realized the head itself was too small, so I ended up embiggening that. And once I kind of got the face and neck, the head and neck done, what I did there was I kind of shored up my lines around the body and started drawing the stripes and the shading for that. And there was a lot of work involved in that, especially getting like the musculature and everything else, and trying to show the power of the animal. But again, as I keep saying before, in terms of my shading, lots and lots and lots of scribbling. I mean, that's the one thing that hasn't changed in the last 5 or 6 years, is, you know, the fact that most of my shading comes from just scribbling. You know, some people, when it comes to hatching, they tend to kind of use more kind of calculated lines, with a lot more, you know, they're a lot more deliberate in their hatching. Whereas me, I'm a little, because of the way that I shade, it's a lot more kind of, I don't know, freeform is the best way to describe it, but it's a lot looser. But it does also afford me the opportunity to kind of build up and reduce as I need to. I mean, one definite criticism I can make of myself straight off the bat is, like, you know, cutting out the tail was daft. You know, that for me was, I should not have allowed that to happen. You know, I mean, whatever, in terms of the dynamicism of the animal, yes, that is a valid criticism, but just allowing the tail to run off the side of the image, that's silly. That's not something I should have allowed to happen. You know, if I'm going to criticize myself, that's one of the major criticisms for myself, for me anyway. So here we are now. I'm kind of roughing out the idea, and that doesn't work. Clearly that doesn't work. It's almost like my legs are up in the air. The perspective doesn't work there as it stands at the moment. So what I did was I changed it up and started on another drawing myself using a different reference, where I'm a lot flatter and the camera's a lot lower down. And then I actually did this drawing upside down, if I recall. So, and that was a challenge in of itself, like shading it all in, making sure everything was right, or as near as I could get it, and I was happy with the end result. And then what I try to do, see, I'm admittedly, I'm not great when it comes to clipping masks and all that kind of stuff. It's something I've only recently started kind of trying to do, and I'm still trying to get my head around it. So I kind of went arseways with it. So, because obviously the two drawings are on different layers. So essentially, in order to kind of preserve the layers, what I did was I duplicated my head. So I cut around my head, duplicated it, and created another layer, put my head over the top. So you could say the body's on one layer, the tiger's on another, and then my head is on another layer, in order to get that effect. And there we are, that's the time lapse. But the thing is, right, the more complete image, because if you notice, there's lots of these kind of wayward lines all over the place that really do affect the quality of the image. Up here as well, as you can see, along the neck and shoulders. So if we go back out of here and we go into finished work, where I keep my more completed pieces. Right, okay, and here's Celtic Tiger Maul again, and this is one where I've gone over and cleaned everything up. See, the thing is, like, when it comes to, especially with the way I draw, because I've got a kind of, even though I'd say it's fairly refined, it's still kind of messy in the initial stages. And the last thing you want, especially when you create work the way that I create work, you don't want those straight lines. You don't want all this kind of mess going on around the image, because it's distracting. I like my images to look crisp and clean. This is why I tend to use two brushes. Like, what I tend to do, if we go into my brush library here, you can see that I've got technical pencil and technical pen. These are my two main brushes. I do use other brushes on occasion, depending what kind of effect I'm looking for. But most of my drawing is done with technical pencil, and then it's sharpening up, whether that's adding in lines or getting rid of wayward lines like what you saw with the previous thing. What I do is I use technical pen, and then I kind of go around the outside and just basically clean it up. So I'll show you what I mean. So we're on technical pen, and then let me see if I can find, oh, here we are. I've got a couple of little wayward lines that I might have missed originally. So what I tend to do is I just come along. That's not right. So I'm making more of a mess now. Am I right there? I am. Come on, work for me, goddammit. You're embarrassing me in front of all my friends. So, as you can see here, what I'm doing, just running the brush along the outside and just kind of very carefully getting rid of all those kind of little squiggly lines that don't need to be there. And that just kind of tightens up the drawing, tidies it up a little bit. You know? So things like that make all the difference, I think. You know, a bit So, and it's something that I've kind of done with a lot of my drawings since then. I mean, you got to bear in mind, like I said, I feel like I've made a lot of progression over the years. I mean, like, what would be a good example of more recent work? So, for instance, like this is a multi-layered work in of itself, Murder of Crows. So what I would do, this is why like a lot of my outside edges look very clean, because what I do is once I'm happy with the drawing, what I'll do for the most part is I will come around and clean up the outside of the drawing, outside edges of the drawing, so there's no like little wayward pixels, and it maintains a crispness and a quality that I'm happy with. So anyway, what we'll do now is we will round this out, I think, because it's about time we do that. So let's do that now. Okay, so that was Celtic Tiger Maul, and if I'm going to be honest, I don't think this piece is good enough to put up for sale. I do have much better work, in my mind at least anyway. I do have much better work up for sale on the site, which is www.johnsdarkart.com. If you like the work that's up there and you want to pick yourself up a print, help support us and what we're doing with this channel, then head over to www.johnsdarkart.com and you'll find that they're available in 2 sizes and 2 prices. So you'll get your A3 prints for €75 and there'll be A4 prints there for €45. So again, if you like what we do, want to support us, please head over to www.johnsdarkart.com, pick yourself up a print. Thank you very much. The thing I want to talk about at the moment, and it's not really tangential to the subject matter of the image, but it is kind of tangential to my creative process, and it definitely has been over the years, much less so now, but very much so up until I'd say the last 18 months, and that's procrastination. Now, I am, without doubt, a world-class procrastinator. Everything else that I'm good at, whether it might be art, photography, or anything else for that matter, I'm not going to say editing or filmmaking, because I still think we're very new to this process, and I still definitely feel like I'm very much improving from the ground level, so to speak. But in terms of my art, I know I'm pretty good at it. In terms of my photography, I think I'm okay. I'm not a bad photographer. But the one thing I excel at is procrastination. Putting things off. And it is, without doubt, the one thing that I feel as a creative, and having spoke to other creatives about it, it is something that is the most deleterious thing that you can allow yourself to engage in. And what I mean by that is this: if you are sitting around thinking you should be doing something and not doing it, or you find yourself doing something else instead of doing the thing that you want to do, then you're procrastinating. You're doing what my father would call putting it on the long finger. And it's an awful habit, but it is a habit, and you can break out of it. And I think what's really kind of helped me, especially this year, because I've been developing habits around my creativity. So with Twitch streaming, I know I've mentioned it a few times, John's Dark Art, I stream most weekends. I have a set time and schedule. I have to sit down and I have to create, because that's the whole purpose of that Twitch channel, is to show my creativity. Like, for the most part it's drawing, but sometimes I might edit a video on there. Who knows, I might even do some photography edits on there in Lightroom. For the most part it's me sitting down drawing, and it's that schedule that helps me do it. Also, another motivating factor in creating work is I've got to do these videos. I've got to create new artwork, so I've got something to talk about in these videos, and that's a motivating factor. So what I'm doing is essentially I'm creating. It's kind of getting me into the habit of creating, and by creating I'm doing more creating. There's less time for me to kind of put things on the long finger. There's less time for me to procrastinate. If you're not finding it, it's not about finding the time. You need to make the time. And this is a thing that I felt has been really beneficial. Now, I'm not just making art for the sake of making art in order to show something on the videos. It is something that I want to do. And this is helping me do what I want to do. If you are somebody who regards themselves as a creative, as an artist, and you're not doing what you feel you should be doing. Because that's the thing, it's like there's a difference between taking time off from what you're doing to do something else that you enjoy doing. Like if you enjoy watching movies, I watch movies and I make a podcast with them, you know, myself and Roman do. Also, you know, whether you like playing video games or whatever it is that you like doing, they're not intrinsically bad things to do. If you're going to the gym, that's a positive thing. You're developing your body. But if you're doing everything you can to avoid doing what you feel you should be doing, you know, when you have this kind of gnawing feeling inside you that you should be creating something, that you feel like you're wasting your time, that you feel that you know within yourself that what you're doing is keeping you away from doing what you want to do. Now look, life is life. If you have a job and you need to earn money to pay rent, to feed your family, everything else, that's one thing. In that time outside of it, if you're not doing something that you feel is meaningful, if you're wasting your time just going to the pub and getting drunk, and again, you can do that every now and again if you want to, by all means. But should you be making a habit of it? I don't think you should, because that's keeping you away from doing what you're doing. So, you know, if I get up the following morning and I've got a hangover, I'm good for doing nothing for the following day. That's basically 2 days wasted, as far as I can see. I don't want to sit here and lecture you about what you should or should not be doing. But if you know within yourself that you're procrastinating, if you know within yourself that there are things that you should be doing and you're not doing it, then you need to do something about it. You need to kind of not so much force yourself, but structure your life in such a way that you can do the things that you find meaningful. And whether that means compounding certain tasks together. Again, like what I'm doing with Twitch, like what I'm doing with YouTube. These other activities are encouraging me to keep creative within my own art. I find that to be a very positive thing. It's a positive feedback loop, you know. Inspiration is something that finds you working. If you are doing something, like for instance, even if you're just doing practice drawings, like I've been very open about some of the drawings that I've done in the past are really just practice drawings. They're just drawings to be drawing. But that's a good thing, because you're developing your skill, and then as you're developing your skills, some of the things you might be drawing, you might think, okay, that might work in a piece down the line. Like one drawing that I'll bring up for you now was, if I bring it up for you here, it's a drawing of a magpie. Now, I finished the magpie itself a few weeks ago, but I feel that's part of another drawing. There's something else that I need to incorporate with this. So that's what I'm going to do. So I've parked it to one side and I've started on something else. So compound habits. Like I can't explain just how useful I've found this in the last year, especially with us starting the YouTube channel, especially with me doing the Twitch streaming, because I've compounded these other activities alongside my art. Then it's encouraging me to keep creating, and it's giving me inspiration because it's finding me working. So if you are watching this and you feel that horrible feeling within yourself that you should be working, then work. Make the time and structure that time so you can be working. Find an environment in which you feel yourself more comfortable working. You know, whether that's in another room in your house, whether it's a section in your bedroom, whether it's a completely different building altogether. Find somewhere, find the time, and do the work. And once you find yourself in that rhythm, then everything else just tends to fall into place. And then you find yourself producing. And then who knows, you may want to share it with the world in whatever way you see fit. Anyway, my name's been John Clare. This has been John's Dark Heart, and as always, you have been very welcome. Until next time.